Today I've got the Canon 7 that I'm going to be reviewing. This was lent to me courtesy of Mike Eckmans. You might remember from my last video that I took it out for a test run with a couple other cameras, and Mike was nice enough to let me keep it for a little longer to do an actual proper review on it, so that's what I'm going to do today. Now I want to mention that if you like to see a full review of the history of the camera and some more pictures that I took with it, be sure to check out my blog. That is alliesvintagecameraalley.com if you remember it. If not, the link will be down in the description. So for this review, I'm going to show you the camera's features like I usually do, but I also wanted it to be my main goal to review the meter. I wanted to test it out because the main reason you would buy a Canon 7 over a Canon P is, besides that it doesn't come with an accessory shoe and the Canon P does, the main reason you'd buy one would be because it has a built-in meter. But these selenium meters tend to be dead by now. They're 60 years old. They're inaccurate sometimes. I wanted to test if a selenium meter, after all these years, 60 years, can still be accurate and dependable. So that's what this review is going to be today. So pull up a chair and let's get started. So first up, let's go over the features of this camera. So right here is the shutter button. Let's take a listen to that shutter. I love that. So right here is the shutter button, and around the shutter button is the film rewind ring. So kind of like the Nikon F, you can turn this an A, and that's for shooting. That allows the shutter to release. Then you have a red dot next to it that locks the shutter to prevent accidental pictures. And then you have the R for rewind, and that is in order to rewind the film. That also would allow you to take a double exposure. If you want to know how to do that, check out my blog. I explain how to do that. Then next to the shutter button is the shutter speed dial. It is from 1 second all the way up to 1/1000th of a second. It also includes time, bulb, and also X for flash, electronic flash, which would connect here. Then you have also built into it, you would put your ISO speed in there. On this it has ASA or DIN, but that's your ISO speed. So in order to change that, you press the button back here, hold it down, and that allows you to turn the shutter speed dial, and instead of changing the speed, it's changing the ASA. So you would set that to 400 or 100 and so on. Now next to the shutter speed dial is the light meter indicator. To use the selenium meter located here, you would first set your shutter speed. After setting your ISO, obviously, you would set your shutter speed, and that, if you watch here, you see that turns inside your indicator, the scale inside there of aperture numbers. Now inside there's a set of orange numbers and a set of white numbers. So back here is the sensitivity selector, and the black dot is for low sensitivity, which is for brightness outdoors, and the orange dot is for indoors and before and after sunset. And the orange numbers in here go with the orange dot, and the white numbers go with the black dot. Next is the viewfinder selection knob. The Canon 7 is able to fit M39 lenses, screw mount lenses like the Leica, and it comes with viewfinders for 50mm, 35mm, 85mm, which shares also a viewfinder with the 100mm lens, and it also has a viewfinder for 135. So as you change the viewfinder, matching whatever focal length you have on your camera, I have a 50. As you change it, the viewfinder lines, the frame lines inside your viewfinder change to accommodate that lens. So that's a really nice feature. I really like that. Although I've only tried the 50mm f1.8 lens, which is a great lens. I love it. Hopefully in the future I'll get to try the other focal lengths. The camera also has not only the M39 thread mount, but it also has a bayonet mount made especially only for the 50mm f.95 lens, which is a big lens and a super fast lens. And they made a special bayonet mount just for that lens, as well as the screw-in. So that's a nice feature as well. Another cool feature that I liked is the double lock system. So kind of like my Nikon F, it has the key here that you turn to unlock, and then also you have to pull down here and that will release the back. So it's a double lock for the back, and it has a stainless steel shutter inside, which is great, unlike the cloth focal plane shutters that tend to get pinholes in them over time. The stainless steel shutter won't get that. So that's a really nice feature as well. And then to close it, you lock it back again, and that's it. And then of course on the front, you've got a self-timer lever here. That's about it. I mean, that's a lot of great features packed into one camera. I've never shot with a camera like that. I personally love it. I think it's beautiful. Now, of course, the one issue that you're going to run into with the Canon 7, especially if you're changing your lenses out and changing your focal length, there's no accessory shoe mount. You see there's nothing on top to mount an external meter. If the meter was dead, there's no way to mount external viewfinders if you need a different viewfinder for different focal lengths that are not included. So that was one reason that Canon came out with the Canon 7S, and because that one ended up including the meter as well as a accessory shoe. So the 7S actually does have accommodations for that. And then of course the Canon P, it does have an accessory shoe but no meter. It's really what you tend to shoot with. If you tend to shoot with a lot of different focal lengths, you may want to get one that has accessory shoe mount. And if you're like me and you don't shoot with a lot of different focal lengths, then that may not be a problem. So that's it for the features of this beauty. Now I'm going to get into the experience I had with the camera. In order to test the meter, I wanted to test out the two sensitivity settings. There is an orange dot for high sensitivity, and that is for indoors situations and before and after sunset. So as the sun's going down and as the sun's coming up. And then the black dot on here is for the rest, the rest of the day when it's bright and the sun is fully out. So I took some pictures indoors with it on high sensitivity. As you can see here, I took a picture of the wreath hanging on my door with nothing but the overhead light on. And I took this picture of my Rolleiflex and a bouquet of flowers, and the only lighting in this situation was the light coming in from the window on the right. And I wanted to see how the meter handled it, if it actually exposed it correctly, and it did. Then I went out onto my porch to see if I could take pictures in the shade with my dog. My dog here on the porch, you could see this is him yawning. It actually metered it correctly. So I was really happy to see that. I also tested it against my Sekonic meter, my TwinMate L208 Sekonic meter, and they were actually identical. The only difference obviously with the handheld is you can get closer to your subject and get an even better reading. You can't really do that with your camera unless you hold it up to the hold it up to your subject, the meter part. But each time I did it, I compared it and it was the same. So next I decided to take it outside and go for a walk in the neighborhood at sundown. Now at first I thought it was sunny enough to use it on the low setting, the low sensitivity setting, because I thought it was bright. To my eye it was bright, but to the meter it wasn't. The Sekonic and the meter matched when it was on the high sensitivity reading. So I took these pictures at sundown. You can see this picture of my house with the clouds above. I really like this picture. My house is silhouetted with the amazing cloud cover. That day was pretty cool. And then here's some footage. I was walking the neighborhood with my fiance, and I took pictures of trees in the neighborhood. I mean, the compositions obviously aren't great. I was just doing these pictures for the purpose of testing the meter, so I mean, the compositions aren't awesome, but there's the cardinal on the sign. Now here, this picture of the overgrowth growing on the side of this house. I don't know if this house was abandoned or not, but I really loved the way the overgrowth looked. But this is an example here of, because I'm far away from the subject, the sunlight I think threw off the meter and it ended up underexposing because it thought it was lighter than it was. So if you can see, it's kind of dark here. And I think that's because the sky was pretty bright. Even it did this, I got the same reading even with my Sekonic, so I probably needed to be closer to the subject to get a better reading. This picture of the birds flying overhead, I was surprised I got it because it was pretty quick. I really love the rangefinder. I'm way better at focusing with a rangefinder than an SLR because my eyesight's pretty bad. But these pictures of the birds on the wires with the cloud coverage, I really love that. The meter actually metered correctly to catch the silhouette of the birds. So after a while walking in the neighborhood, my legs started to kind of go numb. I'm still not 100% with my legs. They're still tingling and numb pretty much on my left side, so that was as much walking I could do. So I head back home, and on the way back I got this flag. I really love the trees. The first shot of this tree I metered using the camera, and then the second shot of the tree I used metering with the Sekonic, and actually the one with the camera actually came out correct in my view. And then just some more shots on the way home. So the handheld meter says 125, 5.6. And the meter on the camera says 125 f8. So we'll see which one's right. Now here I am back in my backyard, and I decided to take pictures in the darkness of the yard to see how the meter handled that. And you can see it did take pictures of the trees and my neighbor's tree and the clouds above my house. So it really handled the dark situation well with the high sensitivity setting. So that was really awesome. I enjoyed that. I decided to save a couple frames on this roll for the next morning. That way I could test the low sensitivity meter and test it in the bright sunlight the next morning. So I got my fiance up and asked her to model for me a little bit so that I could test it in the bright sunlight. It was pretty windy that day, so I had to rush before the rains came in. So here you can see her standing there. These are the exact exposure that I got with the selenium meter, so it was pretty good. And again, I compared it to the Sekonic, and they both were exactly the same. And I'm surprised that they came out as good as they did, because I've used many cameras with these selenium meters and they're always off. They're always off compared to my Sekonic. At least the aperture is off, or you know, something's always different, but these were identical each time I did it. So I was happy to see that. So in the end, I'm happy that the test revealed that the meter is accurate and reliable once you know how to use the sensitivity settings. So sadly now I'm going to have to return this camera back to Mike, but I am really grateful to him for letting me borrow it. That was really kind of him, and now I know what I like and what to look for, and I know what my next camera is going to be. I know what I'm going to save up for next. So let me know in the comments what you think of this camera, if you have one, if you want one. Let me know what you thought of the pictures, and don't forget to hit that thumbs up and the subscribe button, because it really does help me know if you guys are watching, if you're enjoying what I'm putting out there. Until next time, stay motivated and keep shooting. Today I have the Canon 7. Oh my god! Well, knew that was gonna happen. Oh my god.